Captain Marcus Webb stood at the entrance of the Crystalline Palace and tried not to look impressed. He failed. The entire structure seemed to be made of living light, shifting between colors he did not have names for. Towers stretched toward the purple sky, and every surface reflected the twin suns of the Viridian homeworld. Marcus was not supposed to be here. He was a soldier, not a diplomat. But the real diplomats had been failing for 3 months straight, and Earth needed this alliance. The Dominion was coming, spreading across the galaxy like a plague, and humanity needed friends. The Viridians were the most powerful species in this sector, and their queen held the key to everything. "Remember," Ambassador Chun whispered beside him, "the queen is 300 years old. She has seen species rise and fall. Do not make jokes. Do not smile too much. Do not touch anything unless invited." Marcus nodded, but he was not really listening. He had read the reports. Queen Lyran the Radiant, they called her. Every species that came begging for her favor left disappointed. She was cold, calculating, and utterly uninterested in making friends. The galaxy respected her, but nobody truly liked her. The throne room was even more impressive than the exterior. It was a massive dome filled with floating platforms and streams of liquid light that flowed through the air like rivers. At the center, on a throne that seemed carved from a single diamond, sat Queen Lyran. She was beautiful in a way that made Marcus uncomfortable. The Viridians looked almost human, but not quite. Her skin had a faint luminescent quality, shifting between pale blue and silver. Her eyes were too large, too bright, the color of molten gold. Her hair floated around her head as if she was underwater, white as starlight. She wore robes that seemed to be made of the same liquid light that flowed through the room. The queen watched them approach with an expression that could have been carved from stone. The human delegation stopped at the required distance and bowed. Marcus bowed with them, though it felt wrong somehow. In his Special Forces days, he had only bowed to one flag, and that was enough. Ambassador Chun began speaking. He used the formal greetings, the ancient phrases, all the diplomatic language that was supposed to show respect. The queen listened without any change in her expression. When Chun finished his opening statement about humanity's desire for friendship and alliance, the queen was silent for a long moment. "Friendship," she finally said. Her voice was like crystal bells, beautiful and cold. "Your species has been in space for barely a century, and you speak of friendship with an empire that has stood for 10,000 years. We are young, Your Majesty," Chun replied carefully. "But we are sincere." "Sincerity is a luxury of the naive," the queen said. "Tell me, Ambassador, what can humanity offer the Viridian Empire that we do not already possess?" Chun began listing things. Technology sharing, trade routes, cultural exchange. Marcus could see it was not working. The queen's expression did not change, but her eyes grew colder with each word. This was why the negotiations had been failing. They were treating this like a business transaction, and the queen was bored. The evening banquet was worse. The humans sat at a long table made of something that looked like frozen music, eating food that was technically edible but tasted like scented air. The queen sat at the head of the table, surrounded by her advisors and nobles, barely touching her own plate. Ambassador Chun tried again, speaking about mutual defense and the Dominion threat. The queen listened politely, then turned her golden eyes toward the human delegation. "Your species has a saying, does it not?" she asked. "Hope springs eternal." How charmingly naive optimism must be. Do you truly believe that friendship and hope will stop the Dominion? The other diplomats shifted uncomfortably. This was the moment when they usually failed, when the queen's cold logic shut down every argument. But something about her tone bothered Marcus. It was not cruel. It was tired. Like someone who had heard the same disappointing story too many times. Marcus laughed. the entire room went silent. Every Viridian turned to stare at him. Ambassador Chun looked like he might have a heart attack on the spot. But Marcus kept laughing, a genuine, warm sound that echoed through the crystal chamber. "You are amused, Captain Webb?" the Queen asked, her voice dangerous. "Yes, Your Majesty," Marcus said, still grinning. "Because you are absolutely right. Hope is naive. Optimism is foolish. We humans have been naive and foolish for our entire history." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "You agree with me?" "Completely," Marcus said. "We have been naive enough to think we could fly when we had no wings. Foolish enough to think we could survive when smarter species would have given up. Optimistic enough to reach for the stars when we could barely reach our own moon. Our whole history is one stupid, stubborn refusal to accept that things are impossible." For the first time since they had arrived, something changed in the Queen's expression. Her eyes widened slightly, and one corner of her mouth twitched. "And this is supposed to impress me?" she asked, but her voice had lost some of its coldness. "No," Marcus said honestly, "but maybe it explains us better than all the formal speeches. You asked what we can offer. We cannot offer ancient wisdom or superior technology. We can offer three things. We never give up. We always try new things, and we make friends with everyone, even the people who think friendship is naive." The Queen stared at him for a long moment. Then, incredibly, she smiled. It was a small smile, barely there, but it was real. "You are either very brave or very foolish, Captain Webb," she said. "Probably both." "Your Majesty," Marcus replied. "I think," the Queen said slowly, "that I would like to hear more about this stubborn foolishness. Tomorrow, Captain Webb, you will join me for a private discussion. The rest of your delegation may have the day to enjoy our city." Ambassador Chun looked shocked. Private audiences with the Queen were almost never granted, and certainly not to soldiers who made her laugh during formal banquets. As they left the throne room, Chun grabbed Marcus's arm. "What did you just do?" Marcus shrugged. "I treated her like a person instead of a puzzle." "That could have ended terribly." "Yeah," Marcus agreed. "But it did not. And I think maybe that is the point." That night, Marcus stood on his balcony and looked out at the alien city. Tomorrow he would meet with a queen who had ruled for 3 centuries, and he had no idea what to say to her. But for the first time since arriving, he felt like maybe, just maybe, humanity had a chance. He just had to keep being himself. How hard could that be? The private garden was nothing like Marcus expected. Instead of the crystal and light that filled the rest of the palace, this place was green and growing. Real plants from a dozen worlds grew in organized chaos, creating paths that wound between flower beds and small streams. The Queen was waiting for him near a fountain, wearing simpler robes than yesterday. She looked younger somehow, or maybe just less distant. "Your delegation is visiting our museums today," she said as Marcus approached. "They will learn about our history, our achievements, our power. But I think you might prefer a different conversation." "Much different, Your Majesty," Marcus agreed. "Here, you may call me Liruan," she said. "The titles grow heavy after 300 years." Marcus sat on a bench when she gestured to it. For a while, they talked about simple things. The garden, the weather, the differences between their worlds. It felt strange to make small talk with someone who could destroy entire planets with a word, but it also felt right somehow. "Tell me about Earth," Lyran said eventually. "Not the official reports. Tell me something real." Marcus thought for a moment. "We have this place called the Grand Canyon. It is this huge crack in the ground, carved by water over millions of years. When I was young, my father took me there. We stood at the edge and he said, 'That is what patience looks like.' But then he pointed at the river at the bottom and said, That is what stubbornness looks like. Water is soft, but it never gives up, and eventually it cuts through stone. Lyron smiled. Your father was wise. He was a farmer, Marcus said. But yeah, he had his moments. They met again the next day and the day after that. Officially, they were discussing treaty terms and alliance details. Actually, they talked about everything else. Marcus told her about human music, how it could make people cry or dance or want to fight. He told her about Earth's endless wars, the stupid reasons people found to hurt each other, but also the surprising moments when enemies became friends. Lyron told him about the burden of immortality, or near enough. How everyone she had ever truly cared about had aged and died while she remained. How ruling for centuries meant watching the same mistakes happen over and over. How lonely it was to be worshipped but never truly known. Your people treat me like a god, she said one afternoon as they walked through the garden. They bow and scrape and tell me only what they think I want to hear. I have not had a real conversation in decades. That sounds terrible, Marcus said honestly. It is necessary, Lyram replied. A ruler must be above her people, separate, untouchable. It is the only way to maintain order across an empire. Maybe, Marcus said. Or maybe that is just what everyone has always told you, so you believe it. Lyron stopped walking and turned to face him. Her golden eyes were intense. You disagree? I think you can be a good ruler and still be a person, Marcus said. Back on Earth, we had this leader named Abraham Lincoln. He was president during our worst war. People said he should be distant and formal, but he was not. He told jokes. He cried when soldiers died. He listened to normal people. And he's remembered as one of our greatest leaders because he never stopped being human. I am not human, Lyram pointed out. No, Marcus agreed. But you are a person, and persons need connections. They need someone who will argue with them when they are wrong, laugh with them when things are funny, and just sit quietly when words are not enough. Something changed in Lyrene's expression. It was subtle, but Marcus had learned to read her over the past weeks. She looked vulnerable, almost fragile, and it made his heart ache. I have not had that in a very long time, she said softly. Then you should get it, Marcus said. You should find someone who treats you like Lyron, not like Queen Lyron the Radiant. Someone who is not afraid to tell you when you are being too serious. Someone who makes you laugh. They walked in silence for a while after that. The garden was peaceful, filled with the sound of water and alien birds singing in the trees. Marcus was acutely aware of how close they were walking, their arms almost touching. What about you, Marcus Webb? Lyron asked suddenly. Who makes you laugh? Who argues with you? Marcus shrugged. My job does not leave much time for that. I have friends, but they are scattered across human space. Soldiers, mostly. We grab time together when we can, but it is not the same as having someone constant. So we are both lonely, Lyron said. Seems like it. Marcus agreed. Another week passed. The official negotiations were actually going well now, mostly because the Queen's advisors could see that she was interested in the alliance. But Marcus knew it was not about treaties or trade agreements anymore. Something was happening between him and Lyron. Something neither of them had quite acknowledged yet. One evening, as the twin suns were setting and painting the sky in shades of amber and violet, they stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Lyron had been quiet all day, thoughtful in a way that made Marcus worry. You have changed something here, she said finally. In 300 years, I have spoken with thousands of diplomats, leaders, warriors, and scholars. None of them saw me the way you do. How do I see you? Marcus asked. As if I am just a person worth knowing, she said. Not a prize to be won or a power to be feared. Just someone interesting who you enjoy spending time with. That is because you are, Marcus said simply. Lyran turned to face him fully. The setting suns made her skin glow like pearls, and her eyes were impossibly bright. Do you understand what you have done, Marcus Webb? You have made me hope again. You have made me think that perhaps 300 years of loneliness was not my fate forever. Marcus felt his heart beating faster. This conversation was heading somewhere important, and he was not sure if he was ready. But he also could not imagine walking away. What this empire really needs, he said, trying to lighten the mood, is someone to share all this with. Someone to argue with you when you are making terrible decisions. Someone to make you laugh at least once a day. He grinned, feeling brave and foolish at the same time. Marry me, Your Majesty. I promise to be completely inappropriate at formal dinners. He meant it as a joke, a way to acknowledge what was between them without making it too serious. But the moment the words left his mouth, Lyrane's expression changed. She looked shocked, then hopeful, then almost afraid. She stepped closer to him. Her hand reached up to touch his face, and her skin was warm despite looking like moonlight. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I was hoping you would say that. Marcus froze. Wait, what? I have been waiting weeks for you to say something, Lyran said. I could not say it first. Queens do not ask. But I have been hoping you would. I was joking, Marcus said, then immediately regretted it when he saw her face fall. No, wait, I did not mean it like that. I was trying to joke, but actually I was not joking at all. I was just scared to say it seriously. Lyran laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound Marcus had ever heard. You are terrible at this. I really am, Marcus agreed. But yes. Are we really talking about this? Yes, Lyran said. We're really talking about this. And my answer is yes as well. They stood there on the balcony, an alien queen and a human soldier, and Marcus realized that his life had just become infinitely more complicated. But as Lyran smiled at him, her eyes bright with happiness he had helped put there, he could not bring himself to regret a single word. The news spread through the galactic community like wildfire. Queen Lyran the Radiant, the untouchable monarch of the Viridian Empire, was considering taking a human as her consort. Within hours, it was the only thing anyone was talking about. The Viridian High Council called an emergency session. Marcus was not invited, but he heard about it from Lyran that evening. She looked tired in a way he had not seen before, and her hands trembled slightly when she held his. They are furious, she said. They say I am dishonoring our bloodline. That humans are too young, too primitive, too short-lived. That I am making a mockery of 10,000 years of tradition. Maybe they are right, Marcus said quietly. I am just a soldier. I have no royal blood, no special talents. I am going to age and die while you are still young. Maybe this is a terrible idea. Lyrane's eyes flashed with anger. Do not say that. Do not give up before we have even begun fighting. I am not giving up, Marcus said. I am being realistic. Realistic is just another word for accepting defeat, Lyran said. You told me that humans never give up. That they are too stubborn and foolish to know when something is impossible. Was that a lie? Marcus smiled despite himself. Using my own words against me. That is not fair. I am a queen, Lyran said. Fair is whatever I say it is. The human government was equally panicked, but for different reasons. Ambassador Chen called Marcus to a secure communication room and spent an hour explaining all the ways this situation could go wrong. If you fail, humanity looks weak, Chen said. If you succeed, but then die young, we lose our connection to the Viridians. If you succeed, but the marriage is unhappy, we create a powerful enemy. Have you thought about any of this? Yes, Marcus said. And I am doing it anyway. Why? Chen demanded. For an alliance? For glory? What possible reason could justify this risk? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Because she's lonely. Because she has been lonely for 300 years. And I can fix that. Because when I make her laugh, she looks like a completely different person. Because I think I am falling in love with her, and that seems like a good enough reason to take a risk. Chun stared at him. You are insane. Probably, Marcus agreed. The High Council decided that if Marcus wanted to marry their queen, he would have to prove himself worthy. They invoked the ancient traditions, the trials that had not been used in centuries. Marcus would face 3 challenges: the trial of body, the trial of mind, and the trial of spirit. If he failed any of them, the marriage would be forbidden. They are designed to be impossible, Lyran told him. The obstacles are built for Viridians, who are stronger and faster than humans. The riddles require understanding of our culture and psychology. And the trial of spirit? She paused. No outsider has ever passed it. Then I will be the first, Marcus said. You do not have to do this, Lyran said. I could refuse their demands. I am the queen. No, Marcus said. If we start this by you overruling your own council, it will poison everything. They need to see that humans are worth respecting. Let me show them. The first trial took place in a massive arena. Thousands of Viridians watched from the stands as Marcus faced the obstacle course. It was brutal. Walls that were smooth as glass and 3 times his height. Platforms that moved and shifted. Energy fields that burned if touched. Spaces too narrow for human shoulders. Jumps too far for human legs. Marcus failed the first attempt. And the second. And the third. Each time, he got a little further before falling or being disqualified. The crowd began to whisper. Some laughed. Others looked uncomfortable, as if watching him fail was somehow shameful. On the 4th attempt, Marcus changed his strategy. He stopped trying to match what a Viridian would do. Instead, he used his combat training. He used momentum and leverage where he lacked strength. He found purchase on surfaces that looked smooth by using the friction of his clothing. He made jumps that were too far by using a running start and tucking his body at the last moment. It was ugly. It was improvised. It was completely human. And it worked. When he crossed the finish line, sweating and bruised but victorious, the arena was silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. More joined in. It was not the thunderous applause of triumph, but it was respect. He had shown them something they had not seen before. That weakness could be overcome with creativity. The trial of mind was worse. Marcus sat in a quiet room with 5 of the wisest Viridians in the Empire. They asked him riddles that made his head hurt. Questions about loyalty and duty that had no good answers. Philosophical puzzles that seemed designed to trap him in contradictions. Marcus failed most of them. He did not know enough about Viridian culture. He did not have their centuries of experience. He did not think like they did. But he did not pretend to. When he did not know an answer, he said so. When he disagreed with their logic, he explained why. When they asked him about loyalty, he told them honestly that he would choose Lyran over his own species if he had to. And he would not apologize for it. That is not the answer we expected, one of the elders said. I know, Marcus replied. But it is the truth. You asked me to prove I am worthy of your queen. The only way I can do that is by being honest. The elders conferred privately. When they returned, their leader spoke. You have failed most of our riddles. Your knowledge is limited. Your logic is strange to us. But you have shown integrity, and that is perhaps more important. You passed this trial. The trial of spirit was the final challenge, and Marcus did not understand it until he was standing in the chamber. It was a small room with only one other person, Lyran. She stood on the opposite side, and between them was a field of energy that shimmered like heat waves. This is the trial of spirit, the officiator explained. You must cross the field to reach the queen. But the field shows you your deepest fears and doubts. Most people cannot take more than a few steps before the weight becomes too much and they turn back. You may begin when ready. Marcus took a breath and stepped into the field. Immediately, he felt it. The doubts crashed into him like physical blows. You will fail her. You will grow old while she stays young. You are not smart enough, not strong enough, not good enough. She will watch you die and then spend another 300 years alone. And it will be your fault for making her hope that each step was harder than the last. The doubts were not just words, but feelings, deep and primal. Fear of inadequacy, fear of loss, fear of hurting someone he loved. Marcus stumbled, nearly fell. The easy thing would be to turn back, to save them both from future pain, but he did not turn back. He thought about Lyrane's smile, the way she laughed at his jokes, the way she looked at him like he was the most interesting person in the galaxy, the way she had whispered that she was hoping he would propose. She deserved more than loneliness. She deserved someone who would fight through their own fears for her. Marcus took another step. And another. The doubt screamed at him, but he pushed forward. He was crying without realizing it, each step an act of pure stubborn will. This was what humans did. They faced impossible things and kept going anyway. When he reached Lyrane, he collapsed into her arms. She held him while he shook, while the last of the doubts drained away. Around them, the Viridian witnesses stood in shocked silence. No outsider has ever completed that trial. One whispered. He's not like other outsiders, another replied. The High Council had no choice but to accept the result. Marcus had passed all 3 trials. Against all odds, against all expectations, he had proven himself worthy. That night, Lyrane held his hand as they stood on their balcony, and Marcus realized that the hard part was just beginning. But at least they would face it together. The alarm woke Marcus from sleep. It was not the gentle chime that usually marked morning in the palace. It was harsh, urgent, the sound of something very wrong. Beside him, Lyrane sat up immediately, her eyes already glowing with that inner light that appeared when she was channeling information from her implants. The Dominion, she said, her voice tight. They are attacking the capital. Multiple ships, dropping troops across the city. They must have been planning this for months. Marcus was already moving, pulling on clothes and looking for weapons. His military training snapped into focus. How did they get through your defenses? They waited for the perfect moment, Lyrane said, standing and summoning her armor with a gesture. The liquid light that always flowed through the palace condensed around her, forming protective plates. The trials, the political chaos, the council divided. They waited until we were looking inward instead of outward. The palace shook. Somewhere close, something exploded. Marcus heard shouting in the corridors, guards running to defensive positions. He followed Lyrane to the command center, where holographic displays showed the battle unfolding across the city. It looked bad. Dominion ships were landing everywhere. Their troops were pouring into the streets. They were a species Marcus had only seen in intelligence reports, tall and insectoid, moving with terrifying coordination. The Viridian forces were responding, but they had been caught off guard. The neat defensive plans were falling apart under the chaos of a surprise attack. Status report, Lyrane commanded. Her senior general stepped forward, looking grim. Your Majesty, we are losing ground in sectors 7, 9, and 12. They are pushing toward the palace. Our forces are scattered, trying to protect civilian areas. We have them outnumbered, but they have the initiative. Marcus studied the holographic map. his mind automatically analyzing the situation like he had done dozens of times in Special Forces operations. The Viridians were fighting like they trained, organized, disciplined, responding to orders from Central Command. It was good strategy against a conventional enemy. But the Dominion was not being conventional. They were spreading chaos, hitting targets that made no sense, forcing the Viridians to divide their forces. They are using insurgent tactics, Marcus said. More to himself than anyone else. Everyone turned to look at him. Lyrian moved to his side. Explain. Look at the pattern. Marcus pointed to the map. They are not trying to take strategic targets. They are hitting civilian areas, cultural sites, places that make you want to defend everything at once. They are spreading your forces thin so they can punch through wherever you are weakest. It is what we would call guerrilla warfare back on Earth. How do we counter it? The general asked, sounding annoyed that a human was speaking. Marcus thought fast. You stop trying to defend everything and start attacking their weak points. They have the initiative, but that means their forces are also spread out. If you can identify their command structure and hit it hard, the chaos works against them instead of against you. That is reckless, the general said. We would be leaving civilians undefended. You are already leaving them undefended, Marcus said bluntly. Your forces are scattered and reacting. You need to seize the initiative back. Lyran looked at the map, then at Marcus, then at her general. What would you do, Marcus? If this was a human battle, Marcus pointed to 3 locations on the map. They're landing sites. They have to have command posts there coordinating the attacks. Hit those with overwhelming force, fast and hard, before they can adapt. Meanwhile, pull your scattered forces back to defensible positions instead of chasing targets. Let the Dominion spread out, then cut off their supply lines. You want me to give him command? The general asked Lyran, sounding horrified. No, Lyran said. I want him to advise me while I command. General, prepare strike teams for those 3 locations. Marcus, tell them what they need to know about human tactics. The next few hours were the most intense of Marcus's life. He stood beside Lyran in the command center, explaining concepts that seemed obvious to him but were foreign to the Viridians. Ambush tactics, improvised weapons, using the environment as a weapon, how to be unpredictable, how to make the enemy react to you instead of the other way around. The Viridians adapted quickly. They were brilliant strategists once they understood the different framework. Strike teams hit the Dominion command posts with precision and overwhelming force. Other units pulled back to form defensive lines that were actually defensible. The tide began to turn, but then the palace shield failed. An explosion rocked the entire structure. Marcus grabbed Lyran as the floor tilted, pulling her down behind a console as debris rained around them. When the shaking stopped, alarms were screaming, and half the holographic displays were dead. The shield generator, someone shouted. They sabotaged it. There are Dominion troops in the palace. Lyran stood, her face grim. Lock down the command center. Send guards to intercept. No, Marcus said. That is what they want. They are trying to trap you here while they destroy the rest of the city. We need to move. Move where? The general demanded. To the shield generator, Marcus said. If we can get it back online, the palace becomes defensible again. We can coordinate from there. That is suicide, the general said. There could be dozens of Dominion troops between here and there. Then we fight through them, Marcus said. He looked at Lyran. Trust me. Lyran did not hesitate. Get me an armed escort. We are going to the generator room. They moved through the palace corridors in a tight formation. Marcus had a plasma rifle someone had given him, and he used it when they ran into Dominion soldiers. The fighting was close and brutal. The Dominion troops were tough, but Marcus had years of experience in close-quarters combat. He moved on instinct, protecting Lyran, taking shots when he had them, moving when he needed to. They were almost to the generator room when disaster struck. A Dominion soldier appeared from a side corridor, his weapon aimed directly at Lyran. Marcus saw it in slow motion, the weapon charging, the shot that would kill the woman he loved. There was no time to think, only to act. Marcus threw himself in front of Lyran. The energy blast hit him square in the chest. The pain was indescribable. It felt like his entire body was on fire and freezing at the same time. He heard Lyran screaming his name, heard the Viridian guards cutting down the Dominion soldier. But it all sounded distant, like he was underwater. Marcus felt himself falling. Lyran caught him, cradling his head in her lap. Her face was above him, and she was crying. He had never seen her cry before. Her tears glowed faintly, like liquid starlight. No, she was saying. Marcus, stay with me. Please stay with me. Get to. Generator, Marcus managed to say. Each word was agony. Forget the generator, Lyran said fiercely. We are getting you to medical. No time, Marcus said. Finish the mission. Lyran looked at her guards, then back at Marcus. Her expression changed. It was still grief, still fear, but now there was also determination. She leaned down and kissed his forehead. You stubborn, foolish human, she whispered. You cannot die. I forbid it. Then she was standing, giving orders. The guards lifted Marcus carefully. Through the haze of pain, Marcus watched as Lyran became something terrifying. She moved through the remaining corridor like vengeance itself, her power fully unleashed. The Dominion soldiers did not stand a chance. They reached the generator room. Lyran restored the shields while her guards defended the entrance. Marcus lay on the floor, his vision fading in and out. He heard Lyran on the communication system, her voice strong and commanding, rallying her forces across the city. The human tactics, combined with Viridian technology and coordination, were working. The Dominion was being pushed back, but Marcus was not sure he would live to see the victory. The world was getting darker. Lyran's face kept appearing above him, her golden eyes bright with tears and determination. He tried to smile at her, to tell her it was okay. But the darkness was pulling him down. The last thing he heard was Lyran's voice, fierce and broken. You promised to argue with me for the rest of our lives. You do not get to break that promise now. Then everything went black. Marcus woke up slowly. His first thought was that he should be dead. His second thought was that everything hurt, but in a distant way, like the pain was happening to someone else. His third thought was that someone was holding his hand. He opened his eyes. Lyran sat beside his bed, her fingers wrapped around his. She looked terrible. Her hair was messy, her robes were rumpled, and her eyes were red from crying. But when she saw him wake, her face transformed with joy. You are awake, she said, and her voice broke. You have been unconscious for 3 days. The doctors said you might not wake up, that the damage was too severe. Hard to kill, Marcus managed to croak out. His throat was dry. Lyran laughed, but it turned into a sob. She pressed her forehead against his hand. You terrified me. Do you understand? 300 years, and I have never been so afraid. When you threw yourself in front of that weapon, when you fell. Had to, Marcus said. Could not let you die. And you think I could bear watching you die instead? Lyran looked up, her golden eyes blazing. You foolish, brave, wonderful human. I should be furious with you, but you are not, Marcus said. No, Lyran admitted. I am just grateful you are alive. Marcus tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Lyran helped him, adjusting pillows behind his back. When he was settled, he looked around the room. It was not a hospital. It was a palace bedroom, probably his own quarters. Through the window, he could see the city. Smoke still rose from a few locations, but it looked peaceful otherwise. "The battle?" he asked. "We won," Lyran said. "Your tactics worked." Once we hit their command posts and regained the initiative, they could not adapt fast enough. We pushed them off the planet within 2 days. The Dominion lost thousands of troops and dozens of ships. It was their worst defeat in decades. "Good," Marcus said. Then, after a moment, "Did many Viridians die?" "Some," Lyran said quietly. "Fewer than there would have been without your strategies. The military analysts say your human approach to warfare saved thousands of lives." Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of that. Every tactical decision had consequences. Lives saved and lives lost. It never got easier, even when you made the right choice. "The High Council wants to speak with you when you are recovered," Lyran said. "Something has changed among them. When they saw me crying over you, when they saw you take that blast meant for me, when they saw how your tactics won the battle, I think they finally understand." "Understand what?" "That you are not trying to take something from the Viridian Empire," Lyran said. "You are trying to give something to it. To give something to me. And that sometimes the greatest strength is the willingness to sacrifice yourself for others." A week later, Marcus stood in the throne room again. He was still recovering, moving carefully, but he refused to stay in bed any longer. The High Council was assembled, along with representatives from every major Viridian house. Ambassador Chun was there too, looking nervous. Along with a delegation from Earth, the head of the High Council stepped forward. He was an ancient Viridian, even by their standards, with silver skin and eyes that had seen centuries pass. "Captain Marcus Webb," he said formally. "The Council has completed its review of recent events. We have analyzed the battle, examined the testimony of witnesses, and meditated on the meaning of your actions." Marcus braced himself. This could go either way. "We were wrong," the counselor said. "We judged your species by your youth and your differences. We did not see your strengths. You showed us that weakness can be overcome with creativity, that loyalty means sacrifice, that sometimes the best strategy is the one no one expects. You saved our queen's life and our capital city. The council formally approves your marriage to Queen Lyran." The room erupted in cheers. Marcus stood in shock for a moment, then felt Lyran's hand slip into his. She was smiling, really smiling, with tears running down her face. The wedding took place a month later. It was not a small ceremony. Representatives from 24 species attended, including several that had never visited the Viridian capital before. They came out of curiosity to witness this strange union between the Eternal Queen and the human soldier. Marcus wore a uniform that combined human and Viridian elements. Lyran wore robes that shimmered like starlight. When they spoke their vows, Marcus kept it simple. "I promise to argue with you when you are wrong. I promise to make you laugh when things are hard. I promise to love you for as long as I live, however short that might be compared to your lifetime. And I promise to make every day count." Lyran's vows were equally simple. "I promise to see you as you are, not what others expect you to be. I promise to value your mortal perspective and your human heart. I promise to love you for all your days, and to carry the memory of our time together for all of mine." There was not a dry eye in the throne room, and that included several alien species who did not technically have tear ducts. The celebration lasted for 3 days. But for Marcus, the most important moment came on the third night. He and Lyran stood on their private balcony, away from the crowds, watching the stars. "What are you thinking?" Lyran asked, leaning against him. "That I should have been more careful with my teasing," Marcus said. "When I jokingly proposed, I did not expect all of this." Lyran laughed. "I had been waiting for you to say something for weeks. I was ready to accept a terrible joke, or a serious proposal. I did not care which, as long as you finally said it. 300 years of loneliness, Marcus said quietly. Was I really worth the wait? Yes, Lyran said without hesitation. Do you know what I have learned from humans? From you? It is not about living forever. It is about the moments that make living worthwhile. You have given me more of those moments in 2 months than I had in the previous century. Marcus kissed her forehead. We should probably talk about the future. About what happens when I get old and you do not. We will face that when we come to it, Lyran said. Together. Besides, Viridian medical technology is quite advanced. We might find ways to extend your life. Or we might not. Either way, I will take whatever time we have and be grateful for it. Below them, the city was recovering. Dominion attacks had stopped across the sector. Other species were seeing what happened when humanity and the Viridians worked together. The alliance was forming exactly as Earth had hoped, but for completely different reasons than anyone expected. Ambassador Chun approached them the next morning with reports. The galactic political situation was shifting. Species that had been neutral were reaching out. Even some Dominion worlds were reconsidering their allegiance. They saw what happened here, Chun explained. They saw a human save a Viridian queen. They saw human tactics win a battle. They saw an alliance based on genuine connection rather than political convenience. It is changing the conversation across the galaxy. Good, Marcus said, because we are going to need all the allies we can get. The Dominion will not give up after one defeat. No, Chun agreed. But they will think twice before attacking the Viridian Empire again. And they will have to consider that humanity is no longer isolated and unprotected. Lyran smiled. Humans may not be the strongest or oldest species in the galaxy, but they have something the rest of us have forgotten. They know how to build bridges between impossible divides. They refuse to accept that things cannot be done. And sometimes that changes everything. Marcus looked out at the city, at the alien sky, at the future spreading before them. He thought about Earth, about all the humans who would now have a chance because of this alliance. He thought about the battles to come, the challenges they would face. But mostly, he thought about the woman beside him who had been waiting centuries for someone to truly see her. You know, he said to Lyran, I think we are going to be okay. Better than okay, Lyran said. We are going to be extraordinary. And standing there on the balcony, with the twin suns rising over an alien world that was becoming home, Marcus believed her. Humanity had reached across the stars and found connection in the most unexpected place. They had proven that being young and foolish and stubborn was not a weakness, but a different kind of strength. The galaxy was changing, and at the center of that change was a simple truth, that love and loyalty and the willingness to sacrifice could bridge any divide. That sometimes the most powerful weapon was not technology or force, but the courage to reach out to someone and say, without reservation, without calculation, I choose you. Marcus had teased "marry me" as a joke. Lyran had whispered, I was hoping you would say that in earnest. And from that moment, everything had changed. Not just for them, but for two species learning to stand together. The future was uncertain, but they would face it side by side, a human and a queen, proving every day that the impossible was just another challenge waiting to be overcome. And that, Marcus thought as Lyran took his hand and led him back inside to face whatever came next, was the most human thing of all.